Lesson 5, Chapter 4, we're going to be talking about apprehending God. Now, apprehending meaning to like grasp, to grasp a hold of it. So grasping a hold of God. Jeremiah 29:13, and you will seek me and find me when you search for me with all your heart. If we want to grow closer to God, which is kind of the whole goal of this series that we're going through, if we want to grow closer to God, there is an important step that we must take. We've talked about it before. Ask the question of where do you think you're at in your walk with God? Like, what level do you think you're at? And in order for us to grow, that's something that we need to answer. That's something that we need to analyze, look at where we're at. In order to grow closer to God, we need to analyze what our current level of belief in God is, so that way we can correctly grow. So the first step is that we must believe that there is a God. You know, it's like Hebrews says that we must believe that God is, that He is. You've got to believe in God first. But it is looking a little closer and identifying what we believe about God. And that what we believe about God, what we think about God and who He is, that can be a tell to help identify what our level of belief is. So there's three things that we're going to talk about today of how we can view God, or how a lot of people view God. So one of them is that, so do you see God as an inference, like something that is inferred? Do you see Him as an ideal? Or do you see God as reality? So an inference, people who see God as an inference, as something that is inferred, they see God as someone that is inferred, as a deduction from evidence which they consider adequate. But still God remains personally unknown to them. Others, they only know God by hearsay, by what other people say, and they just believe what somebody else tells them about God. They just look at the facts, they look at the logic. There must be a supreme creator. But as far as personally knowing God, that they stop at just inferring that God is there, a deduction from evidence that they have. The next is God as an ideal. Just seeing God as a symbol, that He's just God, that Jesus is just another name for beauty. Jesus is the symbol of truth. He is the symbol of the law, another name for life. That God is just an ideal out there. And then when we look at God as a reality, that God is real, and that because God is real, that He can be really known. He can be experienced. And all throughout the Bible, we see how God is shown to be a personal God, to have a personal relationship with people. You know, and think about those three things we talked about God being an inference, God being an ideal, God being a reality. And think about some of the characters in the Bible. You know, we've talked about Moses and on Sundays and on Thursdays a couple of times. Think about Moses and his relationship, his walk with God. Do you think that Moses viewed the Lord as an inference? Do you think he viewed Him just as an ideal? Or do you think that he saw Him as a real God, somebody who's real? You know, what about David and all those beautiful psalms he wrote about the character of God and who God is and how He's personal to him? You know, about John the Beloved, who knew Jesus personally. You know, it's like, I don't want to just believe in God as an inference. I don't want to just believe in God because it seems to be the right thing to do. Although, you know, that can be a part of it. And yeah, that can truly be a part of our relationship with God, that it is the right thing to do. You know, I don't want to just believe in God and follow Him because that's what the evidence points to. The evidence just seems to point to God being real. You know, although that can be part of it. I don't want to just follow God because He's the symbol of truth. I want to know God. And I want to follow Him because I love Him. And I love Him because I know Him. And I want to know Him and I want to experience the Lord. And so I want to ask you a question, and you don't have to answer out loud. Where do you think you are in your area of belief? Do you fall under the category of just knowing God as an inference, as an ideal? Or do you know Him as reality? The God is real to you, that you know Him just as much as you know anything else. And regardless of what level you feel like you're at, you can grow that level. You can level up. You can increase that, grow to a higher understanding, a level with God. You know, we've talked many times, used the allegory of the levels of steps in our personal relationships with spouses, with friends. You know, your relationship increases over time. Even with just friends that you have from school or from childhood or whatever, you have the friendship increases. You spend time with, and I'm getting ahead of myself. How do you get that friendship to grow with your spouse or with your friends? How do you get that friendship to grow? It's by spending time with them, right? By spending time with them, by gathering knowledge about who they are, their identity, who they are, what makes them them. You spend time with them, you talk to them. And it's the same way with our walk with God. It takes effort to increase that relationship. But it's something that takes effort to do. You know, I think about friends that I've had. It's like if you want to increase that relationship, you got to, you have to spend time with them. That takes time. You know, whether it's just going out and getting coffee every once in a while or just spending time with them on the phone. Well, it takes time. It takes effort to grow that relationship to where you want it to be. It takes effort to grow our relationship with God. And sometimes it doesn't just happen straight overnight. But it takes effort to increase our relationship with God. But it's worth it. You know, you got to read your Bible, pray, meditate on the Word, listen to God, to what He's speaking to you, to what He wants to do in your life. You know, fasting. But just like with other relationships, if they aren't growing, if they aren't increasing, or you're not being proactive and active with those relationships, then they can fall, right? I think about friends from Bible college, you know, roommates, friends that I had that were really good friends that I haven't talked to in years. Oh, that friendship level, that relationship isn't at the same level as it was. But that doesn't mean that it couldn't be again. It would just take some effort to get back to it. You know, and maybe it's just a guy thing that relationships kind of fall off over the years. As I know Gabby, she's got some friends from college that they talk like once a year, if that, and they just talk for hours and hours. Like they just call and talk for a long time. So I don't know if it's just a guy thing that guys just don't have very deep relationships or something, but if you aren't being proactive about your relationship with your friends, your relationship with God, then it's going to fall. It's going to grow stagnant. If it's not growing, then it's getting stagnant. And even if you feel like your relationship with God is at its peak, it can never get better than this, then there's still room to grow. If you feel like you've reached the limit, break that glass ceiling. Keep on pressing. Keep on reaching. See how high you can really get. Because what we do not want to do is we do not want to fall into the trap of going through life only seeing God as an inference, something that's inferred, or as an ideal. We don't want to go through life with that idea and that belief of God. Because then we end up just loving an ideal and being loyal to a principle, to rules, rather than loving God and being loyal to Jesus. So let's talk about God as a reality. And I want to ask a question. How can a Christian know God? Yes, ma'am.
You know, I prayed when my son was like, he was 4, and I used to pray all the time, Lord, bring Ace a Jonathan, David, you know,
Yeah.
give him a relationship with
Yeah.
brother that, you know, they can grow together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then he brought in Zach. They, you know, they all say, we met when we were 4 years old.
Oh,
But
that's
anyway,
sweet.
they still talk today.
Yeah.
They still play online together.
Oh, that's
and
sweet.
talk and
Yeah.
good game. Yeah.
That's awesome.
That's so
And
weird.
they had a relationship as a
Wow.
David Jonathan.
Wow.
That's
That's awesome. I love
They
that.
always were gonna say, they always said they were gonna marry twins so they could really be brothers.
Oh, that's so sweet.
It
That's
didn't
so
happen.
sweet.
No, it didn't happen, but you know,
Yeah.
but
That's
they
sweet.
were, Jonathan and David.
Oh, that's beautiful. That's beautiful. Yeah. Good friendship. There's just something about having good friends. Having good friends. Having good friends.
Trust you.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
We trust people. Trust you more when you have trust with your friends, especially at church.
Yeah. Yeah.
You don't have that trust. Really don't have the insight of your relationship with the Lord. That's what the church has a responsibility to be a reflection of.
Yeah. Yeah. Ain't that the truth? So how can a Christian know God? What are your thoughts? How can we know him?
When I was a kid, I was just told, whenever you need help, or whenever you don't understand something, just ask God and he'll help you. And I'm like, okay. And it's just, like it's not a good definitely, okay, God, watch over my family, God, do this, God, do that. And I don't know that I believe anything I said. And then when I was going to this other church, there was a guy that would pray every meeting. And when he prayed and talked to God, he would cry.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, I don't have that.
Huh.
I don't feel close to God. I just, I've always been told he's there, so talk to him. So my mom used to say, Linda, I used to worry all the time and I'd give it to God, but I'd take it right back.
Yeah.
So that's
Yeah.
the kind of thing I grew up with until that guy at church would cry when he talked to God. And then this other guy, he was a longhorn. He would say, he would talk to anybody when he got to a stop. And then they would kind of talk over what was going on. And he'd always say, can I pray for you? And he would pray for the person. I'm like, I don't even pray out loud in my own house. It's just me.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, that's what I want. And right now, I feel so horribly alone. And it's partly because of all the stuff going on at the other church. It was just wrong. That's all I can say. And now, one of the ladies from the old church called. She goes, Linda, do you mind if I call and talk to you? I said, no. She goes, well, God put it on my heart to keep in touch with you.
That's sweet.
And I'm like, oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Now I've got some, but she calls me every time and then has to put off seeing me, for whatever. Like, she was supposed to come over this week, and I told her no because Brian was coming home unexpectedly 4 days early. So she goes, oh, well, I'm not gonna be able to talk to you or see you in the next 3 weeks because my family's coming. And I'm like, I thought I had somebody I could talk to and confide in.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, okay, God, I want the kind of relationship Jared has with you. I want to feel like I can talk to you about anything. And instead, I just feel so alone. I told Gabby, I feel like there's just me and my dog, and now my dog's getting taken out.
Oh, yeah. That's
So I'm like, okay, now I've got absolutely nobody. So, yeah, I'm going through a hard time.
Yeah.
Because I want that kind of relationship with God, but I don't know how to get it.
Well, the prayers you're praying right now are how you get there, because you're asking, you're asking him to help you grow your relationship with him, and you already said the ideals that you want. I mean, being able to be real with God enough to cry, right? And being able to pray out loud and talk to God, and those are I think that's definitely the first steps. But I also think everything that's been happening, God's been showing you there are still people that care about you, and we talked about that a little, but even today with all the annoying stuff, there's people there who want to pray with you, and
I know today was crazy.
so it's just like,
Yeah, there's
I
so many
think-
people coming to your house today.
as you go along the process, you'll realize you feel less alone. But it's takes some time. It's gonna take time because you're going through such a rough season. But you just have to keep doing what you're doing, talking to God out loud, you know, like letting yourself be real with God about what you need and where you're at, and getting to know Him that way.
I think one of the things that kind of hit me in the head is, you know, since I was a little kid, I was always told, just pray to God, pray to God, pray to God. And I'm like, okay. And then you heard God gave His Son, you know, and you're like, okay, that's cool. But it doesn't really hit you till that Charlie Kirk.
The Lord heard your cry, Linda, that's why you're here.
Yeah.
So,
God brought you here because He heard your cry. He hears your prayer, crying out to you. He wants to answer your prayer.
and I think one of the things that hit me the hardest was when Charlie Kirk was killed. The mother of the shooter was watching TV while they're
Yeah,
telling
you were
what's
telling
going
us
on.
about that story and all that stuff. Yeah.
The mom told her husband, "You've got to watch this. I think it's our son." And so he watched it. Then he called the youth pastor, and between the youth pastor, the mom, and the dad, they talked to the guy that did it, and said, "You got to tell him to do it." You know, and now this kid did, knowing in Utah he's seen the death squad. You know, for that family to turn him in, knowing that he could be shot, he's found guilty, you know, that's what brought it like right in my face. And then could you tell your kid did something wrong if he did, knowing he could get killed for it? You know, and I can't imagine being that family.
Mm-hmm.
I think these moments that you have are helping you understand God too. You know, you tell these stories and you're like, I understood God in this way. And so it's like you're answering your own questions sometimes. But to answer your question, how can we know God? I think a big answer would be just like we were talking about, having that day-to-day conversations with Him, but also reading through His Word, because that's how we understand who He is reading about all of the things that He's done and all of the things that He's doing.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
But it's
I can't read.
Well, or listening.
yeah.
Ears work well too.
Yeah, I turn TV on a lot, and I've now got Jim's CDs of the Bible, and then a lady from the other church gives me on that little machine.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
just have to buck up and do it.
Yeah. Because it starts with having that desire to understand God, to know Him better. But it's about understanding and seeing God as a reality. A.W. Tozer, he talks about how when he talks about, kind of clarifies a little bit of what he's meaning when he's talking about reality. When saying that God is reality. He's saying that when something is reality, that thing exists in itself. That it exists separate from any idea that any mind may have about it. And that it would still exist if there was no mind anywhere to think about it. He's saying God is reality. That God exists in Himself. That God exists separate from any idea that any mind may have about Him. That whether man thinks about Him or not, God is there. And God exists. God is always there. And He exists in Himself. God is reality. A Christian should be able to know God in the same way that he or she knows the reality of this world. And so how do we know things are real? You know, think about the world around us. How do we know that the things are real? We know through experience that things are real, through fact. You know, it's like I know this bottle is real because I can feel it. You know, I can drink out of it. It holds my water. I know this table is real because I can feel it. You know, we can set things on it. It's strong enough. I know that the street is real. I know America is real. I know God is real. You know, there's so many things. But then there's also things that we can't quite see, like all these photos you see of fish in the ocean or whatever, or the shipwrecks in the bottom of the sea. I've never seen that with my own eyes. I've only seen pictures of it. I've only seen recordings of it. You can see germs with a microscope, but you just look at it with your eye, you can't see it on your finger or anything, But things like that, are real based off of fact. Based off of, okay, I haven't seen China with my own eyes. But this person has, and there's pictures, and there's evidence to prove that it's real. There's fact to show it. We know things are real through experience, through fact. When I was a kid, I had a thought about God just randomly. My family, we went to church every day. The doors were open. Prayer meetings, church, Sunday school, everything. And when I was a kid, I had a random thought. Well, I don't know if it's necessarily random, but I had a thought, what if none of this is real? What if God's not real? What if we're all just going to church, wasting our time? We're going to die. There's not going to be anything. And, I would think about that every once in a while. It never kept me from going to church. Didn't keep me from, it's not like that was the only thing in my mind. But one day I figured out an answer to that question. And it's like, I know God is real because of my experiences I've had with him. I know God is real because I've never felt this way before, than when I did in his presence. I know God is real because of the stuff that I've seen him do, my experiences with him. And yes, there's facts attached to it, stuff like that we can talk about creation, talk about all this other stuff that God does, how nature and science, all that points towards the Lord. But I know God is real because of my experiences with him. The experiences I've had in worship, through services, through prayers, of God just reaching in and touching my spirits, of watching God heal people, of God changing my life, turning me around and giving me salvation and freeing me. As I know God is real. Well, let's look at Hebrews, because the key to knowing God and growing that belief, the key to that is faith. Faith is the key to that. So Hebrews chapter 11, verse 1, and we're going to read verse 6. It says, now faith is the substance. Faith is the foundation of things hoped for. It's the evidence or the proof of things not seen. But without faith, it is impossible to please him. For he who comes to God must believe that he is, and that he is a rewarder of those who diligently seek him. And so regardless of what experiences you have with God, the people I've seen healed, the times I've just been touched by God in his presence, almost felt like I could reach out and touch the Lord. Regardless of how many experiences you have with God, you still have to have faith. You still have to have faith. Because there are people that may just say that, that experience you had when you were praying was just you being emotionally manipulated by the music that was playing or by the preacher and the words they were saying. But faith says, no, that was God touching my soul doing heart surgery on me that nobody else could do, and doing something inside of my life. People may say that miracle that you saw, that could have just been nature taking its course. But faith is saying, no, it's not. It was God reaching in, doing what doctors couldn't do, and healing people. And it's not being delusional to just have faith. I'm saying to be delusional about stuff. I'm saying, and I'm not necessarily saying to just blame everything good that happens on Jesus. But every good thing does come from the Lord. What I'm saying is that God is moving, and that God is working, that God does reveal himself to us through experiences that we have. And so before you discount it, before you believe the lies and throw these experiences away, say it was just nature, it was just something else, remember to have faith. Remember to have faith, because that's the thing, is that the enemy tries to throw these lies at us, these fiery darts that are getting shot from the enemy to try and trip up our faith, to try and make us stumble, try and make us fall, to doubt God. And that's why we have the shield of faith in Ephesians. The shield of faith is part of the armor of God. The specific thing that Paul writes about it, the shield of faith that can quench all the fiery darts of the enemy, all the lies that the devil throws at us, all the doubts that the devil throws at us, just have some faith to stop it. Have some faith to quench it. Because if we don't have that faith, we don't have that shield of faith, what happens? All those fiery darts just hit us. They hit us. They hit the rest of the parts of the armor. They begin to chip away at us. They make us doubt. And if we don't have faith, we begin to doubt these things, these experiences that we had, then what does that lead to? That leads to us doubting the one who gave us those experiences. And that leads us to just not even believing in God in the first place. And so we must have faith. And when we're talking about faith, an important thing to understand is the difference between faith and imagination. Because faith and imagination are not quite the same thing. As imagination is projecting that imagination is projecting unreal images out of your mind and seeking to attach reality to it. You know, I had an imaginary friend when I was a kid. It's like, I had a whole story for this guy. He had a job, had all this stuff. His name was Jimmy Clarkson. He was my imaginary friend when I was a kid. He wasn't real though. But it's like you can imagine that something is real. And imagination is just projecting unreal images and seeking to attach reality to it. But faith is not creating anything. It's just simply believing. It's just simply believing in God. And so I want to ask a question. Why is it so easy to believe in the world we can see, but it's so easy to doubt the unseen? It's so easy to believe in this table, that it's real, that this water bottle's real. But it can be so easy to doubt the stuff we don't see. Why do you think that is?
You see it with our own eyes.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah. And that's the big thing, isn't it? That's the big thing is that...
Feel and touch.
Yeah. And that's it. Is just experience it with your senses. Yeah.
I think myself and all this raised is faith. It's like the other churches. I used to use the vocabulary. It's not a coincidence. Not long before we see the baptism of the Holy Spirit, we'd settle down and the Lord. I use that terminology, and I think a lot of people use it as coincidence. Then I realized my eyes of understanding was open. It's one of those things that, and many came to mind. Well, that wasn't a coincidence.
Yeah.
And I began to realize none of that was an accident.
Yeah.
Then I kept processing, that was divine intervention.
Yeah.
So our life should have purpose. And everywhere we go, it should be an accident. It should be, God is in it. Let God be present in it, and Him be present in me.
Yeah.
And nothing's really a coincidence.
Yeah.
It's a purpose.
Yeah.
It's a purpose in plan and doing it.
Right.
The open eyes of understanding and know the hope of the plan.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
If a coincidence, I think about that like a gambling or something.
Right. Well, yeah.
Hit and miss.
Yeah.
Well, I'll get it wrong. That can't be true.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing. Sometimes you just try, I don't know. There's some experiences in life that I have that it's like, okay, well, this experience I had is all because this person I met randomly did this and this and this and this. You know, it's like all the random stuff in life, the random stuff that leads us to here, you know, the random stuff all throughout my life that led to me going to Bible college, to me meeting Gabby, to us coming out here, all the random stuff that led her to Bible college, you know, all this random stuff that happens in your life. Is it random? Is it just a coincidence? Or could it be that there's a God that's orchestrating everything, you know, that has a control of it all? Somebody that's pulling the strings and having His will, having His work. Yeah, I love that. You know, we have a saying we say that's coincidence or God. You know, when something happens? Is that a coincidence or is that God doing it?
Some kind of related to that. I don't know. Talk too much.
You're good.
I was at a coffee shop in the '70s in Niagara Falls, and this man heard me talking. He looked like a well-dressed man, knowledgeable man. He was about my age now. And he heard me talking. And he came over to the guy left and he told me something that just applies spiritual realm, but in the physical realm, there's a connection.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
He says, young man, do you understand this terminology? There's history and then there's revisionist history.
Mm.
There's history written by a biased viewpoint by man.
Yeah.
And then there's real history that is fact-based history.
Yeah.
And it's up to you to choose and see the difference. And he told me to go to the library and to get 4 or 5 authors and books. Then he said this to me. You want to know about the original formula of baptism in Jesus' name? And this guy was like an angel on earth when he said this,
Yeah.
after all that.
Wow.
He said, go to the library now, not next year, next month, today, as soon as you can. And you'll find this information, and I have a track. And you probably have also. And the old encyclopedia's baptismal formula was in the name of the Father. And in the name of the Lord Jesus, in the name of Jesus. Anyway, he says, if you don't go now, the encyclopedias will be updated. And that history in the Catholic encyclopedia will no longer exist,
Mm.
let alone all the botanics and all the other encyclopedias.
Wow.
Because they're updated and revised revisionist history.
Wow. Wow.
What a message that is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I was in awe,
Yeah.
trembled at that meeting.
Yeah.
That time took 15, 20 minutes.
Yeah.
It's like 7 o'clock.
Yeah.
Don't believe everything you hear.
Yeah.
This history's written by wise people.
Yeah.
He says that's the way in the church world and in the book.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Well, that's the thing. As you know, when we talk about believing in God, something that's, you know, maybe unseen as reality, there's a whole spiritual realm, you know, that we can't see and can't even quite wrap our minds around probably. And it's like, you know, we have that story, I think it's in 2 Kings, where the king sends the army to go and capture Elisha. And the young man wakes up, sees all the army, says, we're surrounded, what are we going to do? And Elisha prays for his eyes to be open so he could see all the chariots of angels around. And then there's just a heavenly host all around. And was that heavenly host, did they just show up right then? Were they there the whole time? You know, were they following around Elisha? The angels unawares. It's like, who knows, man? But there's like, there is unseen. Well, we doubt it a lot. You know, we doubt it a lot. That God's working. That God's doing something. That God's with us. But that we can, and that's what it's about. It's about apprehending God. About fully grasping Him. Fully grasping it with that understanding. And that knowledge. And it's all based off of that belief. What is your belief of God based off of? Is it of the level of just all the info and all the facts are pointing that God is there? And so, yeah, God's there. And you believe because of that? Or is it just because of the laws and the commandments that He gives us are good and they're true? So, yeah, God's real. Or is it that, no, God is real because God is real? Because God created everything there is. He exists in Himself. He's eternal. He's vast. He's holy, mighty, and strong. Innumerable, immeasurable. God. And then having that belief and that level of God is real. And He can be fully known, fully experienced. You know, Jennifer, you were saying that one way that we know things are real is through, you know, our senses and everything. Touching, smelling, seeing, all that. And it's like, there's verses that talk about taste and see that the Lord is good.
Yeah.
You know, hear, O Israel, the Lord our God is one Lord. about touching God, about seeing Him, hearing Him, feeling Him. And it's like there's some level that's like we can know God in the same way that we know just about anything else in this world. And that's an experience that we should seek after. And that's a level of belief that we should seek after as well. So it's all about believing. It's all about believing and having that level of belief, that level of understanding. Yeah. Does anybody have any questions or comments?